you prefer to be in. One of self-empowerment, one of joy, one of passion, one of creativity, one of love. There is no room in that vibration for fear, self-doubt, paranoia. When you exist in that state, what you will do over whatever time frame is comfortable for you is you will shift yourself slowly or quickly from one parallel version of Earth to another, to another, to another, to another. And each of those will be more and more and more and more reflective and representative of the state of being you have created within yourself. The truth is, you never change the planet you're on. You change yourself and shift to a parallel reality version that's already more representative of the change you've made within yourself. And thus you see the people populating that version also being more reflective of people who have like-mindedness to the state of being you have created within yourself. So you don't have to worry about the idea of those that might have negative intentions on the planet you may be on at this moment, because if you shift your vibration sufficiently to what you prefer it to be, you won't be on the same planet anymore in the very next moment. If you understand that you're already shifting, literally, this is not a metaphor, literally billions of times per second through various parallel versions of Earth, so quickly, so smoothly, you don't even know you're doing it. You think that when you see a change of any kind, you think that change is happening in the same world. It's not. The change is indicative of the fact that you have shifted to another planet. Literally. This is one world. This is another. Literally. In the course of this conversation, we have all shifted simultaneously by agreement through billions of parallel versions of Earth in order to even create this conversation. So when you get a handle, as you say, on the fact that you're already shifting, then you don't have to learn to shift. You just need to direct the shift according to the vibrational state you prefer to be, and that will allow you to experience more and more in every way, every day, a reflection of the reality you prefer that you've created within your own being, within your own consciousness. And it doesn't matter what anyone else's intention is, because they're another reality entirely. I understand that you may still be able to observe them from a neutral position, because that's still the definition of your reality, is that you're going to be okay with allowing yourself to perceive people that are vibrationally incompatible with what you prefer. That's all right. But that's just a neutral observation. You don't have to assume that they have any ability to affect you in any way you don't agree to be affected. Now, here's the secret to a lot of the people that operate in those negative realms. They don't actually have as much power as they want you to think they have. But they are very good at disseminating information that gives people the impression they are more powerful than they are, so that when you believe they are more powerful than they are, then they are more powerful than they are, because you buy into it and you believe it. That's the secret. When you stop buying into that, you'll see them as people equal to you, who have no ability to affect physical reality as something to manipulate, which it's not from the outside. The idea is that as you change, physical reality on the outside has no choice, like the reflection in the mirror, but to change. However, here's where many of you get a little bit stuck. We recognize that what you have created as a physical reality, space-time experience, has a little bit of a time lag, has a little bit of an idea of volumetric space and time. Things take time. So, when you do create a change within your belief system within, the idea is that you will see a reflection from the outside world, but you may not see it right away. The idea is that what you may see first is what we call an echo of what you have already created. The idea being that the same situation may crop up as cropped up before. Now, we know that many of you, when you see the same situation crop up, when you see it appear before you, may sometimes, because of how you're taught to think of yourselves, go into self-recrimination and self-doubt and self-devaluation and say, I must be doing something wrong. Something is wrong with me. Why isn't the outside reality changing to reflect what I know has changed within me? But the idea is there's that echo. And sometimes physical reality will simply give you the same situation, the same set of circumstances that was there before, to give you an opportunity to see if you actually really have changed. Because change, and here's one of the primary tools in the kit, is this knowledge. Change is not about what happens on the outside. It's about how you respond to what happens. It's state of being, not circumstance. So the idea is that if you say you have changed, and a similar situation crops up, that cropped up before when you were in a negative state, and you react in the same negative way to that circumstance, you haven't changed.
On the subject of parallel realities that you were just talking about.
Yes, parallel reality.
Yes. And you were talking about the ripples, I mean the effects of the other realities ripple into the other reality.
Because of the collective consciousness creating senses of continuity that connect those things together, yes.
So let's say, for example, this is where I need clarification.
Yes.
Let's say in this reality that I'm focused in, I'm afraid of swimming.
Yes.
Does that mean that there's a possibility that in a different reality I had an experience?
That version of you might have had an experience that you're connecting to play out and use that experience to explore whatever themes you're exploring here. Because somehow you believe that making that connection to that experience will serve you. Yes.
Okay. So then, how
Yes.
do I know that, how would I know that that specific thing is something that's serving me?
Well, again, it serves you because it puts you in touch with the idea that you have a belief that is generating the fear.
Oh, I see.
And you use the fear as a messenger to let you know you have a belief you're unaware of. So sometimes you will make these connections to generate fear that will then reveal to you certain beliefs you didn't know existed within the matrix of your consciousness. Therefore, it's doing you the service of pointing them out like a spotlight. And then you can ask the question, oh, what would I have to believe is true in order to experience this fear? And then you can let the fear go because it's done its job. But you will connect sometimes to other realities that might be exploring similar themes, but have had an experience that will induce fear in you to point out a similar belief system within yourself.
I see.
That's one way to use parallel reality connections to your advantage.
So the experience or the purpose of shape-shifting, does
Yes.
that also help us experience more different
Of course.
energies then?
Because
or?
once you learn the idea of shape-shifting, and you shift into a form that is different than what you think of your natural form, you're going to start to know what that form knows, think like that form thinks, behave like that form behaves, and you're going to learn a lot that way. You can even match a frequency. Now, we've talked about different ways of doing this because this is the basis of telepathy, that you don't read another person's mind, but you operate on a similar wavelength and have the same thoughts at the same time synchronistically. That's what telepathy actually is. So the idea of shapeshifting is a further demonstration of that by actually becoming, in a sense, a version of them that is almost identical physiologically by taking on a parallel reality reflection that makes you look like a twin of someone, and then you can understand them completely because you are being a version of them, and you know exactly what they're thinking, and you know exactly how they feel because you are a version of them. So it's a way to learn how to empathize, connect, have compassion, and learn many things from a different point of view. It's the ultimate way to walk in someone else's shoes, by actually becoming them.
Do we actually do that unconsciously here and there, or we
Here
haven't?
and there, yes, you can, but you simply don't express it in the way that shapeshifters do, physiologically.
Oh, I see. So it's the consciousness that's basically experiencing that? It's the
Yes.
experience of the consciousness.
Yes. You're just adapting a reflection and imagining the reflection to actually be your reflection so that you see yourself as something else. And then you will think, feel, and do the things that something else does.
Okay, great.
It's a very, very strong way to learn about the world, about reality, about the universe, about the multiverse.
What you've explained about time travel, shifting between realities, is, and especially with regard to the future, that seems easily understandable, especially with a linear perspective.
Yes.
What is, I suppose, or could be chosen to be a more challenging understanding, is that of how the past is not set and equally malleable.
Yes, but that's only because that's what you've been taught to think about the past.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that's the way it is. That's just the way you've been taught to look at it.
Right. And one of the most striking examples seems to be that of miracle healing.
Yes.
So someone has an irreversible ailment, and they come to a point where they experience that healing, and suddenly it vanishes, and they stand up out of the wheelchair or whatever, because they shifted to a reality where it did not exist.
Exactly, and that means they are not the same person that had it. They've never had it.
Mm-hmm.
It goes that far. Do you understand?
Yes.
It's not that they're the same person and they no longer have it. They are a person who never has had it. Right. Therefore, it doesn't even show up anywhere in the timeline. Yes? Now, you can create the continuity if you want as an experience. Oh, yes, I used to have it and now I no longer have it. But in a sense, that's just wordplay. Because you actually are a new person who never had it. But you're maintaining a sense of continuity that you're the same person who let it go. That's just the way you need to experience it for yourself so that you can gauge that you have changed, that you have grown, that you have made something else happen. That's your way of knowing you've become a new person. You're just using language that makes it seem as if you're the same person when you're not. That's all.
Okay.
So it's the difference, as we say, between describing an experience and actually describing the mechanism that causes the experience. Big difference. Big difference. That's why many of your definitions are outdated, old-fashioned. You still think that the description, the old-fashioned, outdated description, is actually a description of the mechanism. It's often not at all. It's just a description of how you choose to experience it. But it may have nothing to do with how the mechanism that caused it actually works at all. Do you understand?
Right.
The simple example we often give is the concept you call telepathy, which we term telepathy. Most people on your planet go, oh, well, you can read my mind. No, you can't. What you're doing is creating a vibrational frequency that is so similar to the vibrational frequency of someone else. You're mirroring them so closely, you're having the same thoughts at the same time. The effect, the experience seems to be, you're reading my mind. But the mechanism is no such thing. The mechanism is you're simply on such a similar wavelength that you're having the same thoughts because only those thoughts are germane to that wavelength. Therefore, you're in sync with one another, having the same thoughts simultaneously, like two tuning forks vibrating in harmony. But the tuning forks aren't reading each other's minds. Do you understand?
Yes.
They are simply representing the vibration that represents that particular frequency. And that's it. So, description of the mechanism, very different than a description of the experience. Doesn't invalidate either, but it's important to tell the difference. Because when you just go with the idea of the description of the experience, you're reading my mind, it creates all sorts of misunderstandings and assumptions that don't work in your reality. The whole idea sometimes of your scientists attempting to test for psychic abilities like telepathy, they find many times that there's no evidence for it. Why? Because they're attempting to test the experience. It doesn't tell them what the actual mechanism is behind it. Therefore, they're doing the wrong test. And of course, they find no evidence for it because they don't understand what it is. They have proven that the experience is not the mechanism. That's what they've proven by saying there's no evidence for this. That's all they've proven. But they haven't yet realized that the mechanism itself is completely different from the experience that they've just disproven is not the mechanism. We have discussed with you from time to time the idea that every moment you are a new person, that you are shifting through billions of parallel reality versions of Earth every second. The idea sometimes, as we discuss this concept with some of you, may seem that while the person understands to a certain degree that they are shifting, they may not realize the idea that the Earth and the universe and the multiverse and all of creation is shifting as well. So in this transmission, we wish to expand and broaden your understanding that the shifts we are talking about that are automatic and ongoing, that you're becoming more and more aware of that you're doing, extend throughout existence. It's not just you as an individual shifting on the same planet, but the planet is shifting too, because it is one of the parallel versions you've shifted to. So it is shifting. Your universe is shifting. The multiverse is shifting. How can you take advantage of this knowledge in your daily lives? First and foremost, again, we remind you, you don't have to learn to shift. Shifting is automatic. That's how you create the side effect called time and space and change. If you were not shifting, you would not have those experiences. So it's not about learning to shift. It's about becoming more aware of the fact that you're always shifting and starting to match the frequency a little more closely of the shift. The paradox to that is that as you start raising your frequency and becoming more aware of how fast you're already shifting, reality may seem, in a sense, to start slowing down and at the same time accelerate. The idea of the slowing down is that by matching the frequency, you get to see the frames more clearly. They don't just whiz by. They become more apparent to you consciously. And yet, as they become more apparent to you, they're becoming more apparent in the present. So the idea of seeing more of the frames more consciously that you're shifting through actually allows you to live more in the moment, and living more in the moment while seeming to slow things down actually speeds things up, because everything happens in the now and everything is already existing in the now. So the paradox of your senses will be that things will sort of seem to freeze now and then. Space and time will become more malleable, more flexible. At the same time, you will experience what feels like an acceleration, because you're becoming more aware of more of what is in the present, more of what is in each of those frames that you are now more conscious of. So you have this double effect. As you become more conscious of these frames, by raising your frequency, by following your passion, of course, following that formula, you can utilize this understanding of going to zero, going to zero, going to zero with each shift in a much more constructive, powerful, conscious way. Because that is exactly what you are doing. That is exactly what the entire planet, in a sense, is doing as it manifests with you in the new reality, billions of times per second, as the new reality, billions of times per second, since they all already exist. So the idea of Earth Zero is to become more aware of that zero space. The idea that it is truly blank in the shift, and that you get to define in that moment more clearly who it is you prefer to be, what kind of version of Earth is more reflective of that, and of course the universe as well. But let's keep it focused on your planet for the moment so it doesn't get a little bit too heady. So the idea, again, is now that you know more and more that you are shifting billions of times a second, broaden your perspective that when you do, start seeing in your imagination, start seeing more consciously that the earth is shifting too. So that in that sense, not that it comes with you, but that it goes back to zero and is defined, is invented with you. Not just you reinvented, but the earth you are on reinvented. That you are connected to it, you're an extension of it, because you are nature. You are of the earth. It is of you. You are creating your version of it. And so if you start to see that the entire globe is new, zeroing out with every shift, billions of times per second, you will actually start to accelerate the effects you see of things appearing to change in the world, because you are more rapidly and more consciously taking the earth with you, so to speak, as you know you are shifting. And you are seeing the new shifted earth more clearly because you are allowing yourself to include the idea that the earth is shifting and going to zero as well as you. And this can accelerate your experience of actually more consciously seeing those reflections, what you call changes in your reality. Now, this is a version of accessing parallel realities. Again, since everything exists at once, they're all parallel realities. What you call the past is a parallel reality. What you call the future is a parallel reality. Again, it all exists now. But you have these convenient labels for them, these convenient perspectives of them, because you're coming from a space-time framework. However, as you understand this zeroing out principle more consciously, you're going to start experiencing with your senses more of the overlap. More of the idea of a kind of double and triple exposure of the different earths you're shifting through. So the idea is that you may start seeing kind of a residual echo of the one you were at, a residual echo of the one you're going to. You will broaden the idea of the window of the shifting so that you can actually start to really feel stepping across a bridge, including where you were, where you are, where you're going. It will broaden your understanding and your ability to perceive multiple parallel versions of Earth at once so that you can more consciously navigate, because if you can see what's coming up and you understand where you've been, it charts a clearer course in your consciousness. You can actually start to see the course you're taking. You can see more of the map that you are using to guide yourself, to navigate yourself through these billions of parallel realities. And you can broaden it even more and more and more and more until you will allow yourself to be able to conceive of and perceive multiple versions of all of the Earths, and it starts becoming kind of like seeing more of the frames all at once, and you have a bigger understanding, a bigger chunk of understanding of the path that you are, the path that you're manifesting. Now, in a sense, this means that when you start doing this, it's a new way of understanding and experiencing more consistently the concept and the experience that you call déjà vu. Because the idea in what you call déjà vu is that you have a sense of knowing what's coming up because you feel you've been there before. So in a sense, you're using the forward and reverse arrows of time simultaneously as they exist in the present together. So this concept of Earth Zero is a way of expanding the idea of déjà vu into something that is actually a practical device, a practical tool to broaden your understanding of seeing more of the path that you are and navigating it more consciously by being able to see ahead, in a sense, where you are going because you've already been there. Because you are already connected. There are already versions of you on all of the different parallel versions that are relevant for you. So it's like tapping into a future self that already has a past memory of already having been where it is you're still going. You understand? This is a shift, a big shift, because in the past, so to speak, most of you will rely on learning what you need to move forward from what you've already experienced. You will look back to the past, and I'm not saying you should stop that, but the idea is you're starting to shift anchoring to past events over to the idea of anchoring to future events. Since they all exist at the same time, why not pull yourself forward, in a sense, instead of going back and looking and using that to maintain the idea of knowing that a future self is already on a version of Earth that already exists, and to that future self, where you're going is already the past, can really accelerate and propel you into that future self, into becoming that future self on that version of Earth in what you call the future. And since everything exists all at once, you can use them in any way you wish. You can use them this way. You just have to start thinking multidimensionally and knowing that other versions of you already exist and that they have their own experiences that you can tap into and use to your benefit in this way. So let the future self pull you forward. This is similar to what's happening in the channeling, where I am, again, according to your euphemisms, the channel's future self, pulling him forward, allowing him to become his version of what he believes us to be, so that he can rely on my past experiences to become his future ones. This is how Earth Zero works. Allow yourself to begin to relate to communicate with, to open up to the idea of being in a zero place that can have any definition. The entire planet, the entire world, your entire cosmos, all of your experience, zero. And then from that zero clean slate place, start connecting more to the idea of what the future self would consider to be its best past path. And allow that to become your future path, instead of constantly remembering backwards to propel yourself forwards. Let the future pull you towards it. Let your future self engage you and urge you and encourage you forward by walking in its footsteps, steps that already exist from its point of view, but you will have your own experience of that. That's the beauty of it. You're not actually repeating exactly the path the future self took, but it is giving you guideposts. It is giving you footprints that you will step into and experience in your own way that you believe is relevant for you. But the footsteps are there to follow already. So, allow yourself, in understanding more and more the idea that you zero out at every moment and you can redefine yourself in the next moment, allow more of that redefinition to include the experiences the future self has already had, but in a broad enough way that you can also determine what those experiences shall be for you. Then you will accelerate greatly because you'll be able to see that path more clearly. And you know that the future self is shining a light on that path and on those footsteps for you. Does that make sense? Does that sound like fun? All right. So, let that sink in. There are many other ways that your imagination can aid and assist you in developing this relationship to the future self and allowing yourself to be more conscious of zeroing out. You can use Earth Zero in a number of ways. Let your imagination be your guide, aside from what we have just suggested as a permission slip.